we are going to please get a motion to approve the minutes of October 18th and the 25th. Okay, and I will abstain, and otherwise we have a 3 in favor. We are today going to review capital requests from the fire department, school, and sewer. And we have Chief Murphy here. So, Chief, if you want to join us, the floor is yours. Just kind of run us through what you got, and we'll go from there. And then we'll discuss briefly out years. And just to make sure our lists are tracking before we get started, a little easier to address this stuff in advance. We've got for FY20 request, replace engine 7, replace ambulance number 1, replace the what do we call those?
SCBAs.
SCBAs.
The initials, the air packs.
I always want to say scuba. And the ALS equipment.
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So we'll start with the recurring one from last year, which is the replacement, continuous replacement of the SCBAs, the air packs that we use for IDLH, which is the immediate danger to life hazards, going into buildings, noxious fumes, confined spaces, and stuff like that. Last year was approved, and I thank you guys for that. We received our first 10 packs for that came in last week, and the training went through on those. The packs have changed considerably since our older models. Our first 10, which are going out, which are, I want to say, we're almost 20 years old. I believe they were 2000s when the frames were built. Huge improvement in the ability and the wear of the fire department, the firefighters, and able to wear those. The ergonomics are huge. The safeties have changed. And just so happens the NFPA standard is changing again coming this year. So even those old packs that we have that were the early 2000s are going to be out of NFPA compliant soon. So we're getting ahead of the ball with this, with the 10, and then hopefully these next 10 replacements going forward. The packs themselves are bit off of a state bid, and I've already confirmed with the pricing with the vendor. Everything's going forward on that.
Okay, great. Questions, comments? I guess the only question I have, Chief, so this is 10 this year, 10 a year out, and 10 2 years out. What's the cycle after that? Is it a 5, 7, 10 year?
My idea is, and my intent is after we complete this changeover, is to incorporate a replacement schedule into my budget, so it doesn't have to become a capital issue, when we can do every couple of years, replace 5 or so, and keep it as a constant cycle.
Thank you. I remember you saying that, because we discussed this quite a bit at the last session. Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Yep.
What you got next?
The ALS equipment. This is going on with a program we currently have in place. A paramedic program started with 7 members of the fire department in September. So they're in their, into their 3rd month of training now, close to 3rd month of training to become certified as paramedics. This money here will take and go forward to equipping 1 truck. A monitor, just to give you an idea, for a paramedic truck or paramedic that would use is about $30,000 to $35,000 just for the monitor itself. So that would be a large sum of this $50,000, and then the rest would go for auxiliary equipment such as airway or other monitoring equipment or disposable equipments or medications and stuff like that. Okay. And this is part of a 3-year thing going forward to look at to equip all the trucks in the end.
So 3-year per truck. It'll be how many?
We have 4 ambulances right now.
Yeah.
I have it on the for next year for 100 to equip 2. This 50 will let me get the first one truck spun up for next fiscal year. I'm hoping that my intent is, I should say, to go forward right now, is this winter is to license at an ALS level. That'll take a little period of time, and then by next fall, be able to have the ability to run my first ALS truck. For next fiscal year, have one truck, and then the next fiscal year after that, so 21, be able to do 2 more trucks.
And then at that point thereafter, is there an interval with required some type of a standard that you have to follow with updating this equipment, or is this the same type of thing you're going to be putting into your operating and addressing it as you go?
It'll be put into my operating and addressing as I go.
I'm just looking at out year expenditure.
It should be just the 3 years in this whole thing going forward, and it'll be in operating after that.
Thank you. Peter?
Chief, does it make sense from a cash flow standpoint to go ahead and buy all 3 of the monitors or 4 monitors at $35K, so $140,000, and just put the rest of the monies for the ancillary supplies and operating budget? I would rather see it just be done. Buy it, maybe you get a little bit of a discount possibly, but just go ahead and buy the 4 and be done with it. We don't have to worry about it from a capital perspective, and then it's part of operations.
Right, and then the other items fall into.
And I'm looking at Brian as addressing the chief.
Chrissy, one sec. I just want to hold to follow up on that to make sure is that
I
on
had
that?
a comment on that.
Okay, go ahead.
I didn't know are you doing it to accommodate how the staff is getting certified? In other words, is it relevant how the staff gets certified? Because you said 7 guys are getting certified. Does that have any relevance on sort of staging like that?
No, I didn't want to. I expect this funding to come out of the ALS account, or the ambulance account, excuse me, and I didn't want to hit that too hard all in 1 year. There's also an ambulance that I'm asking for this year too, is on a replacement schedule, and that's a considerable amount. I didn't want to overburden that along with the salaries that already come out of that fund.
And is the sundry kind of equipment already baked into this versus your operating budget, or is that something that can be shifted?
What's that? I'm sorry?
Along the lines of what Peter is suggesting, is the units are capital, and then the accessory equipment that are more disposable, or the other stuff would go into operating. Is that possible to do, or is it you seem to be a little hesitant?
Yeah,
so
I'm thinking it through, and my intent was to equip one truck, get that one truck running, get it up and running, and then next year, when the program's spinning up stronger, and I know I can equip the 2nd and the 3rd truck, and then the 4th truck in the final year. I didn't want to overburden the ambulance reserve account. I didn't want to overburden, the whole process, to be quite honest with you. Could we buy all 4 at once? Yeah, we could, but we'd have kind of be putting the cart in front of the horse a little bit, because I'm not going to have enough paramedics to function, kind of the way Christy said, for all 4 trucks.
But we know we bought into the system. We bought into the ALS, and we're there. And
the other thing too, and it might be to take into consideration, is the fact we're buying. This is a state bid item as well. It is on the state bid. We can put it out the bid. We might get a better price, but I'm not convinced we will. And it also gives us some rotation into devices as a replacement schedule down the road. So we're not buying another 4 in 5 years.
But my concern is with that $50,000 kind of threshold, buying something that's 35 and spreading it over a couple of years. In theory, it's creative accounting, and that's probably more where I was coming from. Is
Oh, I get you. Okay, so
because the threshold is 50, and
right, and I had a little different. You're saying that there's a particular unit that's about 35, but it's part of a kit that's about 50.
So all the equipment in order to put an ambulance to ALS would be a monitor, would be airway equipment, would be medications, the IV equipment we'd have to buy from the hospital, and once we get all that equipment on, it would be part of the operating budget replacement there afterwards.
Okay. So what I was interpreting is you were saying, let's put purely capital in capital and then buy the 3 or 4 so it meets the threshold.
correct.
And put the other items in the operating.
Yeah.
Which I think is a point well taken, and I think is a matter of operating. We prefer not to be mixing operating with capital. However, I think the point you make about having them be staggered in terms of their in-service date, not even their in-service date, but as a result of when you purchase them, perhaps even their production date, you'll have maybe not more features or anything like that, but it's a newer machine over the course of the 3-year period.
And technology does change a lot, and they do have new machines coming out.
Okay, so that's good, but those are good points. Brian, did you want to make a comment?
A lot of the operating supplies that will eventually be part of this, that they'll purchase on an annual basis, will eventually come right out of the ambulance reserve fund. This is the first thing. I mean, we kind of, when we talked about the 50,000, okay, we kind of looked at it as, that's really the startup cost for one ambulance. So that's why it's been lumped this way. There is some, we could discuss, buying more than one, I'll call it startup kit for the discussion here. But when we were doing this, we were also trying to time these purchases as well to when we were actually starting to receive ALS revenue. Because right now, don't forget, we're not generating any revenue from advanced life support right now. So I think that's why we made the decision to go with one, to get one ambulance fitted up so that when the class graduated and were ready to be certified and could go, then we would be able to start being able to do that. Because right now, all we are generating from the revenue is for basic services, for ambulance services. And when you're trying to buy $200,000, $300,000 ambulances out of there, we're also paying for up to 6 people out of that fund, funding all of this other stuff without having the revenue that's associated with the service that you're creating up front. Does create a little bit of a, it does put a little strain on the ambulance reserve fund initially. So that's kind of why we were spreading it out. Now, we can certainly look and say maybe we can do 2 versus 1, so we have 2 ambulances up and running, but I defer to the chief on whether he would have the staff to be able to run the 2 ambulances. I don't want to be spending all of the money and not have the staff to be running it at that level, either and generating the revenue at that level. So that's kind of where, when we discussed this, how we laid it out. But we could certainly, if the committee is suggesting that we consider buying possibly a second one so that we do have 2 ambulances fitted by October or November next year, it's certainly something we could take back and look about whether we can fit it into, because this all comes out of the ambulance reserve fund. There's no capital of this nature that comes out of the operating budget. This is all out of the ambulance reserve fund that's been set up.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Peter, you good with it?
I'm fine.
Okay, it's good to round out the understanding. All right, we're going to move on to engine 7.
Engine 7?
Or if you want to hit the ambulance while we're talking ambulance.
Might as well do the ambulance while we're talking ambulance. This is to replace that 2008 truck, F450. It's a 10-year-old truck. It has 40,000 miles on it, which doesn't sound like a lot, but the abuse and the wear and tear on these trucks fits into our replacement schedule that we have now. I actually moved this out a year last year. It was scheduled in the plan when I came in. I moved it out 1 year to give ourselves better spacing for going forward. And just to give you a little insight, the one we bought 2 years ago, the truck we replaced, when we traded it in, it didn't even make the Rhode Island line before it blew up. So just to give you a little,
left.
we traded it in, we brought it up, brought our new truck back, and the salesman told me afterwards when they wholesaled it, the wholesaler didn't even make the Rhode Island line.
Oh my God.
They had to replace the engine in it. So we do, that's kind of probably the far side of it, but our replacement schedule made sense on that one.
Other questions? I know you've thought this through, but I just want to confirm these come, it's more for my own edification. Do these come pre-fitted for the ALS, or does the ALS package include the fitments so that happens? I'm just kind of curious.
So this is kind of like buying a work truck and then putting your tools in it afterwards. So the trucks are designed to be functioned as an ALS truck for a paramedic to use. Okay. Even the last 2 we just purchased were purchased with the idea that at some point down the road we'll have paramedics. So the drawers are in the right places for IV start kits, and the monitors are in places and stuff like that.
Right out
so
of the gate.
we're looking at that. Plus these last 2 trucks we bought also have loading systems in them for the stretchers and power stretchers, which are huge resource for the guys so that we're not injuring backs and lifting patients as much too. So it's a little added cost, but it's well worth the end game on the other end. And we buy those right from the manufacturer because we get a better deal than going through the vendor on the truck.
Thanks, I'm just curious.
Yep.
I just have one question.
Yeah, Rick.
How many EMTs will you have after the first group goes through?
So at current time, my full staffing on the department is 26, which is 24 on the line and 2 of fire prevention, not including administrative staff. Everybody on the department is an EMT basic. So as it stands, I have 6 people on a shift. Only 2 on each shift will be a paramedic, so that'll leave 4 people on every shift, or 16 will be EMT basics. So that'll leave me 16 and 8. And then the 2.
Peter?
Who's the mechanic who services the equipment?
That's a great question.
I have that on my list. That's awesome.
Right now,
I
we've
had
been
the
working
Snickers.
with finance. We're putting a invitation to bid for our mechanic services. Right now, I have an in-house. The DPW has been gracious enough to take and allow us the use of their mechanic when he's available in crunches. And I've also looking forward in my operating budget of possibly adding a mechanic to my staff. So I have somebody to do my maintenance work and my pump testing and my emergency repairs and stuff like that.
Do you have diesel and gas and hydraulics?
Everything's diesel for me right now.
Yeah.
The only gas we have are our admin cars. And it's kind of relevant today because I have one truck that's broke. I have another truck that just went down this morning, which leaves me with 1 engine in the station and then 1 in Sconset. And they're bringing the 1 in from Nantucket that was having some problems started to replace the one that was in town. So, yeah.
Not too many diesel mechanics on this island.
No, there isn't.
No.
And then you add to the fact that servicing emergency vehicles is a whole nother certification as well, and a whole nother discipline.
Could understand that.
You have to have the ASC, and then you have to go for the EVT certifications as well. And it steps right from simple brakes and then to pumps and right up to the hydraulics and working on the ladders.
How much latitude do you have, Chief, on the package to look for this mechanic? Meaning, do you think you would compete with outside world?
I'm hoping, and I'm going a little bit off of what the airport is just replacing their mechanic. And they had some very qualified people apply for theirs. I don't know if they've made a decision on theirs yet out there, but if we get the same, if we're approved
bunch.
for the position and it's funded, then I'm hoping, and it makes sense compared to what we get for a bid back. If I can contract out the service and get the service I would get from a full-time mechanic, then I'm fine with that. But the problem with that is it's gonna be somebody from the mainland coming over doing the work.
Yeah.
Because we're not gonna be able to get somebody local to do that. So I'm still stuck with my emergency repairs when the truck breaks at Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock. But I'm hoping that I'm right about the same salary range that I put through the airport. So I'm hoping I get those same candidates.
So they had people apply, so that's good.
They did. Hopefully I do.
Okay.
If we get that far.
Good.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So a couple questions along that line, and then just kind of tangential. Is there a facility within the new barn for you to have a vehicle workshop?
Inside what's being built now,
Yeah.
yes and no. When we move into that station, we're gonna be close to full on apparatus space. I'll be able to fill every single space between the foam trailer, the utility truck we have with the skid unit in it, the ladder trucks, the tanker trucks, the engines. Right now, I have the brush breaker that was just completed a couple weeks ago that we picked up is actually sitting at the airport in the hangar because I don't have space in my garage and I didn't want to leave it outside. So we'll have space to keep our stuff inside that we have. If we have to work on something, hopefully it'd be moving equipment around inside, or then the other thing that I'm hoping we can get through is the finishing of the outbuilding that we could do maintenance in.
Right, so that ancillary structure you believe will are you, I guess that's what I want to make sure that we're provisioning in terms of either what you've planned or what we have in our out years for what we need in order to fulfill your goal, which is, I think, worthy, which is having in-service maintenance. I mean, you've got the vehicles and they're specialized, and it's not just like somebody's coming in and changing oil or diesel particulate filters. I mean, they can be specialized in the ambulatory systems and all the rest of that. So it seems really important there. I'm just wondering where it's going to be done. And if it's not something you have the capacity for, I want to identify that now so that we might just even bring up the topic of, is there a bay, or can a bay be created at the DPW facility? I mean, I know it's not ideal, but if you have, well, let's not go down that road.
The ancillary building is a huge part.
Okay.
It would provide a large benefit. Now, one of the things we always do is do what we can with whatever we have. So we will make do what we can if we don't have that.
We're
But
Yankees.
it would be so much nicer to be able to have a maintenance facility, ancillary building, storage that we can keep that at. That would come into play in a lot. So just to give you an idea, right now we have foam storage in the station in Nantucket, around the foam trailer, in 2 fairgrounds, and we have some we have stuff stashed kind of here, there, and everywhere. And then as well as trailers at the airport, and then the new truck at the airport. When we have that ancillary building that we share with police, that'll put everything kind of closer together for us, and we won't have to spread everything out and around. It'll also provide the opportunity to have lifts in place that we could use possibly even on our bigger trucks if we end up getting the right kind of lifts, and provide a safer work environment for the mechanic. So in the perfect world, we get the mechanic. We have the mechanic working on not only our equipment, but emergency vehicles. So it could be the police department, it could be the marine department, it could be, in conjunction with the airport. If we have big stuff, they have big stuff. So a shared resource is what I really envision this as being.
Yeah.
And then they have the auxiliary building where, at the end of the day, they don't have to worry about making sure that their work is safe for other people to be around,
Right.
which is what would happen if it was on the floor of the new station.
Or even, if you used a bay at the DPW, it'd have to be secured, and it's just a
Exactly.
different level of.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's great. I mean, I knew you were thinking about it. I'm just kind of curious where we were with it. And where are we with the ancillary in terms of timeline?
Timeline.
Generally, I'm not looking for days and dates, but
Well, I think that if I remember correctly,
sorry to spring this on you.
that's okay. I think there's a capital request from the police department for the supplemental funding because it came in substantially higher than we had estimated that it was going to cost. So we're at a timeline right now that we have no ability to proceed without having the additional funding on the implementation of that outbuilding.
This isn't the ancillary option that was approved a couple of years ago?
This is the option
that's what you're
that
talking
yes,
about
this
when you
is
use the funding.
this is the ancillary the outbuilding
The outbuilding.
that was approved and was included in the third round of supplemental funding that allowed the station to go forward. There was a number projected and estimated in that was, I think that not only capital program, but FinCom said if we need it, we need to include and go for that funding at the same time, included in the estimate.
Was that 3 million? Do you remember?
It wasn't 3 million that we were asking for in the supplemental funding. It was about $1.5 million, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, but that was probably a year ago or so. So, but when we went out to bid, because it's basically, if I remember the structure correctly, it's basically just a metal building that we put out to bid directly rather than include in the bid, because we anticipated we would get it at a better pricing based on the structure, and it came back far outside of what everybody thought it would for what the structure was. So the police have included in fiscal 20 request funding to bring us to what we need to be able to continue that part of this implementation.
Okay, that's useful. Also.
So we are at a point where we can't do anything. I mean, we could go out to bid again and hope that it's dropped by 50%, but I don't know that that's what is realistic. That would happen.
It was a number that came in well over the top for some of the trade on,
And
not so
I-
much the building itself, but the,
So,
Right.
so best case
Slab.
scenario, something like this would not be, the shovel wouldn't hit the ground, obviously, until at least the fiscal year begins. But
No,
sounds
it,
like
it
it's
would.
after that,
Well, no, it could actually, because of what it
because
is,
it's supplemental.
we could, if town meeting, if capital program, FinCom, and everybody included supplemental funding, and we had the funding, once town meeting approves it, depending on how we are funding it, it could start the day after town meeting. Because realistically, if this funding was authorized as a borrowing, just for discussion's sake, okay? Once I have the authorization to borrow, we submit all of the paperwork to Hilltop Securities, who helps us manage borrowings. And then bond counsel gives us what we need for a requirements letter to go out, and I can borrow in June when we do our other borrowing, and they could start the day after town meeting on the process of getting ready. It's not there wouldn't be a long time lag for this, depending on what the funding source was.
And we've already got authorization for some of it, so we can start.
We have authorization for some of it already within that current authorization, so.
a lot of the site work has been done and everything. It's just a matter of when, there were several things within the building that were precluded from the GC contract in order to save that percentage over the top.
Yeah.
A lot of the items not supplied are owner supplied items. Brian's been helping me take and bid out for inside, as well as the vehicle exhaust system, which is another $160,000, or the fence and the asphalt, where they were already contracted items. So this was one of those things that was held with the idea that we could bid it out ourselves and save that money, and the price on certain portions of the building were just astronomical.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's just helpful. We get an idea when housing and for the rolling stock, and if the mechanic comes on, where that goes. Before we let go of facility stuff, I just wanted to ask. I'm just curious. I know we got a bunch to do today, but diesel fueling, is there facility or capacity in the new structure for some type of reserve if there's prolonged a lack of availability due to big storms happen? We haven't had one, thankfully, in a long time, but I was kind of curious about that. Or if in the alternative, which I think would be perhaps better for the town all around and less of a capital expenditure, do we have some type of a contract locked in for emergency service fuel capacity with suppliers on the island?
I haven't run into that in the years that I've worked for the department. Harbor Fuel's always been really good about making sure that we were filled up before storms in our tanks for our fuel dispensing, whether it was the diesel or gasoline. And they, it even comes to the point if we're at a fire and we've been there for a long time and we need fuel, they'll send a truck out to fill our trucks directly from that. That doesn't address the whole point of the emergency reserves. We're out for a while, but what would is the new tank farm going in. We're not contracted in or locked into any rate that I know of with the gas account.
Or we're a
Harbor
small
Fuel's
community and they're
they've
cooperative.
been very good
Okay,
to
I was
us.
just curious about that. Okay, great, thank you.
I just had the ALS, is everything gonna get billed at ALS at this point going forward? Once everything's refit?
So to that point, no. Every call isn't an ALS call. They have to make certain criteria to be an ALS call. The number could be varying on a percentage-wise, anywhere from 40% to 60%.
Got it.
Depending on how you looked at it and how the report is written.
Okay.
So, and what skills you provide. They'll bump into an ALS call.
It's fair.
And there's different ALS rates. There's an
Right.
ALS 1 and there's an ALS 2, which are considerably different.
Yeah.
The amount of caregiving and stuff. So.
Thank you. Engine 7?
So engine 7, this is my, it's a 1988 Ford F800. We took purchase or delivery of it in 91, 92, I believe. It was a demo model built by Greenwood Fire Apparatus. So they took and built the back, they put the pump on, everything else. We bought it as a package with another engine we bought, an E1 at the time, which has since been replaced. This truck is done us well. It's lived in Sconset originally. It spent some time in Nantucket. It spent some time in town. But it is a 30-year-old truck. It's starting to give wear. It doesn't go into reverse all the time. The pump needs to be rebuilt totally. It hasn't passed its pump test the past couple times, but it's been close. Going forward, the truck is a regular two-wheel drive truck. It's built off a regular conventional chassis. The price number that I'm using is based off a truck that Harwich just purchased. It's based off, if you've seen any of the California fires over the past couple of years, it's based off a CAL FIRE engine. It's a regular commercial chassis. It's not a custom chassis. That saves a lot of money right there. I'm very restricted in how long the truck can be because of where it's going. It needs to be able to fit in Sconset or fit in Nantucket and in our smaller stations. So I may not get that full crew out of it. I may get a cab and a half kind of thing out of it. Still got to research that. Depends on how we design the actual working part of the fire truck and the storage. Just to add to it and build off of that a little bit of what I said earlier, we have very specific trucks for our job. Engine 1 and Engine 4, if you look on the top list, those are my two main trucks that we take out and do all the work with. So those are the trucks that go to the fire alarms, go to the building fires, go to the car fires, and that's how they're set up to be. If you look at Engine 2 and Engine 3, those trucks are what's called WUI trucks. WUI's Wildland Urban Interface trucks. They're good for building fires, but that's not their design function, shall we say. They're good for putting out brush fires. They pump and roll. It's a different system with a pump. It's a PTO pump. They're not as big in the cab. You can only put 3 people in there uncomfortably. Whereas the other trucks, you can get a full complement of what you want to have showing up in a building fire. And then Engine 7 in itself is again, back to our commercial cab. So if you really look at that right now, Engine 7 is my third line structure engine, not to try to simplify it at all. And it's a 30-year-old truck. So conveniently, inconveniently, and just really bad luck today, right now I have Engine 4 that's in service. I have Engine 1 that just broke today. I have Engine 2 that has a problem with the rear end that I'm trying to get fixed. Again, trying to get the mechanic to work on it. Engine 3 had a problem starting, but we got that started, so that's in service. So right now, reliably, I have 4, 7, and Engine 3 as my engines. So I know, and we had this discussion the other day, what it would cost if we fixed this truck. The pump would probably be $15,000 to $20,000. I called up the company today just to get a solid number. The transmission's going to cost another $10,000 and cost that much to put a transmission in it.
Does make sense.
I'm at $50,000 thereabouts, and I still have a 30-year-old truck that I need to replace an air tank in. And I looked at the frame on the truck today, and it looks solid. But he said this service person at Greenwood Fire Apparatus said those trucks have an affinity of having the frame rail rot because of the road salt and stuff, because they're an open double frame. And if that ever happens, then the truck's done.
Frankly, Richard, go ahead.
I hope you could speak just a little bit about what we talked about the other day, that it's not just a truck that sits parked in the garage in Sconset. It does get a lot of use.
It does get used. It gets used on details. Every time we have a third-party detail, whether it's a fuel farm or fire watch, anything like that, that truck is specific to that duty. The other thing that would be different about this truck, and kind of an upgrade, is it would be a four-wheel drive truck in this model. So that in times when Sconset snows or like that, we need to use it, it'll be able to get around by itself and hopefully not have to have a front end loader leading the way to make it to an alarm call, which we've had.
We've seen that.
This truck gets used in Sconset often, and it would be a really good addition to the fleet. And if anybody, I do have some pictures of the idea of what I was looking at. It'll all be bid, of course, or thereabouts. A simple commercial chassis with a custom body built on the back.
Okay.
Nothing over the top.
Any other thoughts or comments? Okay. So, I guess one thing I'd say is frankly with this salt that some of these, and I know this one's been in Wisconsin, but with the salt these things go through, I'm amazed that they're still as old as they are. In the out year, so, you know, you're intervaling in new equipment with respect to the fire engine on a 2-year cycle. What are you anticipating, keeping in mind now that we have the idea of a mechanic on staff? What are you looking at the next set of intervals? So for instance, engine 7, FY20, FY30, FY,
So I kind of broke it down on this part, which lists all my equipment. Useful life of an engine can be 15 to 20 years dependent on what we use it for. So like engine 7, where we used it, that's a 30-year truck. Almost 30 years we've gotten out of it. A ladder's 20 years, the tankers are gonna be 20 plus years, ambulance is 8, and then staff cars 8 to 10. So I can see this engine lasting, yeah, I have this one. This engine lasting 20 years.
and just for our discussion, I mean, we've talked about this before and it seems to be at kind of a fuzzy point. This is what I would refer to as a scheduled replacement. This is something that is, it's gotta, you know, we don't necessarily, schedule doesn't mean that in, 15 years from now, we're gonna replace it, but we're budgeting for it based upon the manufacturer's recommendations. And then, qualified by the use, so that we know that in Sconset, yeah, we can extend that out a little bit more. So I mean, just a point of discussion, I wish Nat was here, but, I'll mention it to him. That's a great example of what that means. Okay, Chief, that's very helpful information. I appreciate that. I had no other questions on that. Anyone else? No. Okay, great. Well, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And this information, very helpful. We will be working through all our requests and putting together our recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I would just suggest that perhaps we do any questions or comments about the Rory sheets at the end, if that's okay?
Sure.
It's small list. Good? Okay. We have the school up next. Welcome.
Michael can sit there.
Michael,
Sit there, stay there.
stay there.
Geez, he announces his retirement, and then he falls apart.
He was playing basketball.
He's got my Achilles playing soccer with fourth graders.
Oh my gosh. Jesus.
Less than worse, it could have been kindergartners. Michael.
Well, what really is comical, because I've played Division I soccer, semi-professional, old man soccer, never missed a game, and the fourth graders did me in.
Sorry we didn't provide our seats tonight.
No, we're good. We're good. We'll sit right here. We're happy.
That's funny.
He's the most important one.
Yeah,
What about the language class? Was after
6 to 12 months.
he was on the ground. Yeah.
I've had surgery, and everybody's got a different horror story that it happened to them, and they'll say,
Not with fourth graders, we don't.
"That's true." And the funny story is that I was just trapping a ball, wasn't running, wasn't showing off, and I heard a pop, and it felt like somebody kicked me in the back. And I whipped around because I was going to find that little fourth grader. We're not on TV, are we? And I know. I was going to find that fourth grader, and there was nobody near me, which is a good thing because I would have blamed whoever was close. But
Wow.
so
Well, that's
anyway,
very unfortunate. Good luck with that.
enough about
That's
that.
horrible.
Can we get those out?
So we're gonna meet, we're here today to discuss the office building, and there were no other supplemental requests. Okay, just wanted to make sure. And jump right in, Michael, please.
Well, I guess the thing that I wanted to do first is talk about our numbers. And as you know, I do a 20-year look at our numbers. And back quite a few years ago, before we built the school, we had a demographic study by Cropper and McKibben. And I look back at it, And this was done in, I think, 2014. And, you know, doing demographic projections is tough anywhere, it's tough on Nantucket. But they said that our population this year would be 1686. And our population this year was 1686.
Wow.
And I've just never seen a demographic study be spot on. It was just kind of interesting. And we've continued to grow. In the time that I've been here, we're up 450 students in the 8 years. So it's still, and they're still coming in. So we talked, I think, at the last meeting about, you know, should we put something on the 5-year, 10-year projection? It's the last thing that I wanted and hoped we would have to do. But if we just keep adding 50 a year, in 4 years, that's 200 more kids. And in 8 years, that's 400 more kids. Now, I hope it levels off. I've gotten a little pushback from my comment, but I just think it's doing our job to say, this is what it could be. At the high school, in 2010, when I arrived, we had under 400 kids. Today we have 530, almost 550. And so it's pretty remarkable. All of that really just goes to say that we need to bring some of the people that we moved to NES back to the central office. We need to bring in ELL, special ed, a conference room, and it's gotten bigger. This renovation that we were planning has gotten bigger because we need to get them out of the schools for special needs. That's the other thing. Preschool special needs has doubled in the last 3 years. Well, we have 51 total. So anyway, I just want to set the stage with that. That's why we're looking at, we're doubling the size of the renovation. So I'll leave it at that. I don't need to
Yeah, no, I mean,
just respond to
it's good
questions.
information, I think it's good general, it provides the foundation for the discussion. You're relocating services that are provided in other areas to open it up for students and so that's good information. What I'd like is, I don't have any supplemental on the structure itself. And,
Do you have another copy of this?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I just gave it.
okay, great. All right, let's talk about this.
So before we talk about that, just a quick question. The money that was originally approved did that come from the money authorized for the new buildings? Is there any room left in that authorization for any of this money?
Well, we have to sit down and go through and figure and look, because we haven't, I haven't actually taken another look. We just permanently borrowed the other $1 million that we had, so I'd have to go back through and go through the line, but my expectation is that we more than likely could cover the 650 through the borrowing if that was.
As of this morning, obviously it's not borrowed yet, we had 2.8 left.
2.99, yeah, close to $3 million are still out.
In the original appropriation for the school.
Yeah.
Okay, it's useful information. And then I want to have a clear understanding before we get started in the discussion. What is the final total number for the construction work that's in front of us today?
We don't have a cost estimate. I don't have one yet. We just got this final plan, we just agreed on the final plan with the 2,200 square feet. I took my numbers from, Libby put out an email and asked all of us collectively how much we were spending per square foot for our buildings, like just recently. Obviously, I can't use the fire station, that was $800 and something a square foot. The elementary school was, the intermediate school was like 534, and the building they did at Brant Point was 590 or something, so I took a 550, which is sort of in the middle. We're not building a fire station, I don't need the heavy equipment, I don't need specialty things, this is just a building on a slab, so we took 550 per square foot as an estimate, and that's where we got the 1.2. I don't have anything else right now. I mean, we need to get through the process, and this is the timing of it, so that's where we got our number.
I think
from.
the architects are prepared to
They are,
give that to us.
to go to an estimator if we're, it's kind of a balance.
Right. So understanding that there's a process involved to fine tune the actual number. We're looking at this point, an estimate based upon, it's an educated estimate
Past estimate.
of
That's-
approximately 1.2. Okay. That's really where I was going with it. I wanted to get an
Right.
understanding. Okay, thank you. So, please, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if how much definition you can see on there, but you'll see that we've brought the special education office, which has 3 people working in it, back over, and we are bringing the ELL office, which has a director and an administrative assistant, and we need a conference room over there. It's really been pretty tough to have to go over to the intermediate or the elementary school to use their conference room for the variety of things.
And that will be taken up as a classroom once we move people out.
Right.
The existing,
Right.
the space we right now use for a conference room.
So there are 3, arguably 4 classrooms that would be freed up at Nantucket Elementary School by our moving those offices back to our school. And that would allow them to go to universal preschool, which is preschool for all 4-year-olds.
Thoughts at this point? Comments, questions? Brian, just to hone it back in on dollars and cents. The current ask was 6? What was the previous number?
550?
It was 550.
I thought it
550.
was 600. Okay, so I just wanted to hear what the spread was.
And we came to you last year after town meeting, and you approved that we could use what was appropriated went to bond,
From the bond
from
money.
the bond money. And that 550 was coming out of that.
Right, okay, and then the difference in the square feet between then and now?
Basically double. I mean, special ed itself, just so you understand, they have to have private conference space. They have to keep their locked files in their rooms with them. There's gigantic files that they're in this proposed plan. We're proposing to move them into the current downstairs. Martin is staying upstairs. Veronica, who is Martin's assistant, is going upstairs, and the IT director is coming over from the high school to free up her room for high school space. So she's going to be going into Mr. Kozart's office. So we're moving more in than.
I would say that special education department right now occupies a classroom that is probably 900 square feet, and use the conference next door to that. So arguably, they would need 900 to 1,200 square feet.
And it's not private at all.
No, it's not.
It's tough right now.
And then the other question is, so the existing building is gonna be, it's basically gonna be a gut rehab to repartition and relocate?
Not really,
or-
the existing building, this is the existing footprint.
Yeah.
And we're really not gutting it. We are using what is now Veronica's office, which has servers in it. The servers will have to be moved into the utility room.
Yeah.
So that will become a hallway. And the other side where the restrooms are,
Yeah.
that's already a hallway, so it's just a matter of going through the wall there.
But, I mean,
We're not
you're,
really
you're
touching
putting in,
anything
I'm just trying to understand the dollars, again, the dollars and cents and the scope of the work. So they're interior, there's partitions that need to be moved, new finishes. You know, you're not gonna be,
Electrical
you're not moving a wall and putting down a slice of carpet. You're basically removing what's there and you know, I'm not suggesting gut rehab in the sense that it's an elaborate or overly elaborate thing. I'm just trying to understand the scope of work.
I think that we would be putting in 2 walls in that existing downstairs. When you come into the central office now, and you sort of turn right, come forward and then
Yeah.
turn right, we would have 2 walls that would enclose the one space for the special ed director. She needs a space that is not open to everybody else that's in there.
Right, and that's on the first way side?
Yeah,
Okay,
and she doesn't have that right now.
okay.
And as you might imagine, there are a lot of confidential conversations in the
Yes.
special education world.
And then, so the blue area on your site plan?
Can I come up?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, on the site plan, okay. That's the addition.
So this
This
is the
is the
addition?
existing
Yeah.
building.
Okay.
So
And
we're
then-
gonna add a vestibule right here and
Yeah.
do away with where the front door comes in.
Yeah.
And then this is the addition. This is the garden. So we're going out toward the garden and then toward the parking lot.
That exists?
Yeah,
garden
so this
exists.
is
Yeah.
all addition. This is the existing.
We're not
this is
moving
our
the garden
existing-
again.
So we're
We
not also
moved it
building a
once.
garden?
No,
We
but that's
did move
there.
it
That's a
once.
sustainable
Yeah.
Nantucket garden.
Okay, and then, so the question I have also is the addition also gonna be slab on grade, or are you putting in foundation space?
Slab of brick.
Slab on grade, okay.
And we have to,
Was there a conscious decision? I mean, obviously there's a conscious decision, but what was the, would like to
just
understand.
less dollars, really, than putting in a basement. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, when we're building, we typically residential, the basement is almost the cheapest place to do, because you're doing the site work anyways. You're gonna have concrete on the site, obviously it's more concrete, but even if it's just established as storage space, it's there, so that's, I'm just asking
No,
again.
we
so I have
we
an
thought
understanding of
about doing
scope.
it, and we just were saying, okay, we can't, this is crazy,
We
we
have to
can't.
tighten our belt.
And
Right.
it was a belt tightening. You arguably could put records and vault down in the basement if it were properly, ventilated. I told people that I would stay another year if you'd build a deck so that I could watch the soccer games outside there, but
Wheel yourself out.
I think
at
they
this
were
point.
just sort of, okay.
All right,
How are you gonna handle the construction? I mean,
Well,
physically?
that's a good question, Richard. And it's another reason that we decided the construction this way, because it will provide as minimal distraction to the existing building as we can, because we have to continue to operate. And so the connections won't be, added until the slab and the shell are done to that building. Now, at some point, there will be an effect on operations, and we'll have to work around it, but.
I have sort of an office in the high school library, because that's where the main terminal is for our security system. So we maintain that office, and that's where all the plans are kept for the buildings, and I have a computer set up in there. So while this is under construction, I will move over there, and Veronica, whose office is gonna become a hallway, that's where she's gonna ultimately end up. So she will just go up there right away, and I will move over there while this is under construction.
so all good information. Other questions? Peter?
Just a question on accessibility. I see you have it at the front door. There's no need to get access to the second floor?
No, the offices up there will be business offices, and they can come down to the conference room should anybody
We do
need
have
to
get a
meet with
waiver.
them. But you're right,
We absolutely have to.
As I said, that
yep.
No, you're absolutely right, we know
First
that.
thing is stuck out.
Yep.
And, so I think what I would like to see, just to complete the package, is your second floor plan,
Oh, sure.
when you send it out.
The existing?
Yeah, well,
What's
yeah,
out
just
there?
so it's all in one place.
Right, because it makes it look like the existing
Sure.
building is smaller than it is
Yeah, just.
in terms of
Yeah,
square
we get a
footage.
chance to pick up the
Yep.
packet and review it.
That's
and
fair,
looking
yeah.
at it,
So should I just email that to all of you? Or you,
I would suggest just email it through,
Rebecca?
Rebecca, and then, Rebecca, if I may ask, I know this isn't your primary job. If
That's
we-
Ally.
Ally, I'm
That's
sorry.
I was gonna say-
I'm thinking of Rebecca.
I was thinking, is there another one?
Rebecca's had it out.
She's gone now,
She's
so
gone.
you can just send it to, well, you can send it to Rebecca, but copy
Rebecca
Ally
Woodley
and I. Yeah.
is gone?
Well, no, not literally. She's on vacation.
Oh, okay, all right.
Just say, gone on vacation, big difference.
Sorry, I
I was
apologize.
thinking, boy, that was quick.
No, we do not. We really like Rebecca, so.
Okay.
we,
If I could just get a large one print of the second floor, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll stick in my packet. and I'll
Not a
get it
problem at all.
Yep.
Okay, great.
We have those.
Is
All
there,
right.
is there any consideration for storage in this building, for files and?
There is,
And we have the little one.
yeah, there is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because you're right, there are a lot of special education files, and there are a lot of personnel central office files. We are working to start to digitize that in an effort to cut down on the amount of paper that we
Yeah.
file.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Good, this is helpful information.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you coming in. We hope that little table isn't intimidating. We've heard that it is. That wasn't the intention.
This?
Really?
Yeah.
Is it like,
It was donated by the
Why
fourth
is
grade
it
class.
intimidating?
I don't
like
know,
an
I just, the idea
interrogation
was to
table or
have like a place to put
Interrogation
this
table.
stuff.
You need a light.
it's the spotlight, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be good. And a heat lamp, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good luck, Michael. Godspeed and the healing. Okay. So, obviously, guys, we'll be discussing that in more detail as we get to the.
thank you.
Thanks, you
Thanks
guys.
again for coming. All right,
Sewers.
we're gonna move on to sewer. Hey, David, welcome.
David's been busy.
Hey,
It's good.
you asked, shall receive,
Yeah, you could know.
although I do have something else to add to the packet. It's in there as a request, but it didn't make it to the.
Steve?
Yeah, this is pretty awesome, actually.
I sent it to them electronically.
Wow, it's quite a bit.
Wow, that's an amazing thing.
Dave, these bits are all replaceable, cut them off with a weld.
Yeah, carbide replaceable. I actually just got to see one operate up in Quincy when I was just up there on Monday, so.
What'd you think? Good?
Does it say 2 minutes to excavate a manhole cover and replace it, to get it out? So.
Is that a standard size, or it looks like it's bigger than the
Big,
manhole?
yeah, that way you can set the riser and everything, cement it in place, and
Got
then
it.
cement around it, and
I see.
then fix
So
it.
there's, in the image, there's one behind it that's been done.
Yeah. Big difference compared to square cutting, and, ragged edge cutting, and then these round cutting.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna hit that when we talk about your additional equipment request.
Yep.
Under that. Let me just see if we can make this as manageable as possible. We've got not a ton of time. Long
You only had a
list.
few things, I think.
Yeah, a couple. Why don't you just go from the top, David, as we've got it, I think, in our packets, and we'll try to process this quickly. And none of this stuff is, or very little of this is actually new material.
No.
Updates.
Yeah.
So I think that should help facilitate quick process. And actually, you know what, to make it a little bit easier for us all, I think if we go through in the sequence we have them in our packets.
Okay, works for me.
David, I don't know if that works, how that works with you, but,
Works for me.
okay, great. So, up first, we have the Aurora Way. Pump station, and actually, I think maybe what I'll do is, these are not set up to track that, but if you bear with me. The Aurora Way pump station, we were looking for the SIP request form with the backup.
Yeah, which
costs.
we haven't got into design yet on that one, so I do not have any further data.
Okay.
That is just one that's starting to become troublesome, but I don't have any hard numbers yet. I do have an engineering firm getting ready to look at that, but I honestly can't give you anything further on that one right now.
And then where are we with, so, in effect, I guess I'm just thinking scheduling and timeline. Where does that put us?
We're talking probably later 2020 than into 21. But again, the force main this winter delayed a lot of the stuff I was gonna do, so.
Sure, no, I understand. So, I mean, just in terms of, with our process is making a recommendation on a dollar sum. So, I think what I'm wondering is it feasible that this is actually gonna be in FY20? Will you have a number for our process, which we make our final, we wrap up our numbers really at the end of the month?
Yeah, no, I won't have any.
So
hard
is this
numbers.
something that,
Probably should go 21.
Well, I mean, I think that,
or it gets funded somewhere else, or what?
no, I mean, I think that it looks like what we have here is we have the actual construction split between 2 years, okay? 20 and 21, but, I mean, there's no, we could work with the engineering, whatever firm that David is going to ultimately have do the full design work and bid specs for this, to have them give you, or at least go and look at it preliminarily with a rough idea of what they can glean from that, and they can give us an idea of what it would cost to do the full-blown design and everything, and then a rough idea of what the construction costs would be. I mean, I think that that's something we probably could have. We have 3 or 4 firms that we use regularly on the island all the time right now. So it would probably be pretty easy right now to have one just go over and kind of give us an idea of what that cost. I mean, we could probably just put design work in 20 with full-blown construction work in 21, but the sewer director is better suited
a firm
to
coming
tell
on
me
Wednesday.
whether or not that works.
I have a firm coming Wednesday to look at another pump station. Time allows, we can have them go.
Yeah, and
Go
I'm
right
not
up to the
suggesting that we just put it off because we don't have an exact number. I just want to be clear. I want to make sure we have a number
Yeah.
that we're going to be using and that it all kind of coalesce there. The other thing I might add, if I may, Ally, if you don't mind, is the Planet FY21 doesn't have the 250 for the remainder construction. It's got the 295 for construction, approximately I think 40 to 45 for FY20, and the rest construction in FY20, but no 250. So if we can add that would be helpful. Okay, so where we'll leave this then, just to close it out, is that we, aside from any questions or comments, with respect to the dollar number, we need to know what we're carrying for FY21. And that's, subject to David, what you can pull together and work out with finance and, obviously what the.
I don't know why it didn't carry over.
We just need a number.
Yep.
We understand the project, I think. Any questions on that?
Just a quick question, I may have not been here. Is that gravity to the pump and then it pumps?
That one is all gravity to the pump station except for like 6 lots, which pump to a gravity manhole and then ultimately go to the station gravity. This pump station originally was designed and built for the Aurora Way. There's like an 8-lot or 9-lot subdivision in there.
Yeah.
However, over the years, long before my time, it's expanded greatly. There's been a lot of private homes along Hummet Pond Road drill into the force main and tie into it and keep pumping up to Vesper Lane that way. It's getting to the point where we need to have a firm come in and say, time out for a minute. Are we getting to the point where we're putting this thing at risk, or taxing its capacity. This station ultimately, depending on how Hummock Pond North or Hummock Pond South ultimately go, this could be a hop station for Hummock Pond, which might go to this station and then get pumped to the plant. It's all, it's on our radar as a hotspot, so we're looking
So
at it
it's
very
not
carefully.
just a fix for Aurora?
No, it's ultimately gonna take ultimate flows. We could be talking Austin Farm. Those places are all in the sewer district now, and they're all looking to get into sewer.
That's great, thank you.
Hey, David, so the Bathing Beach Road sewer mains,
Bathing Beach is in a firm's hands now. They're working on the design and final costs and stuff like that. So we should have some true numbers. Again, this one has been kind of a moving target a little bit because of the town wanting to do some work at the structure itself. We're gonna incorporate an external grease trap now in the process to try to solve some of the grease issues that are down there. So we're trying to work in conjunction with facilities at DPW to try to do this together at the same time, as is trying to curb some of the flooding we have down there. But right now, the line that's in place is so bad that each winter we actually have to go down and physically plug it with a ball because of the II that gets in.
right?
And last winter, if you recall, we had it plugged and we actually had to go remove the plug so the parking lot would drain so they could go work on the building. It was that bad.
So this includes the buoyancy restricted grease trap,
Buoyancy restricted grease trap, external grease trap.
external, and then it also includes the 2-inch stormwater drain force main.
Yes. Yep, it's gonna be incorporated in the
Water
same.
to a different location, so you're not flooding.
To North Water Street, it's gonna go to North Beach Street, it's gonna go to one of the storm drains there.
Okay, and the 285 number you feel based with including the FY19 that was previously approved, the FY20, you're good with the 285?
Yeah, these numbers came from bids from Shimo and recent construction projects, so we had some it could be a lot less down there with the construction I just went and witnessed on up in Quincy on Monday. Depending on construction protocols we use, we could have some cost-saving stuff coming, so.
Okay, great. Any other comments, questions? All right. So, next is the new sewer force main design that we really gotta change this coatings and plan it. So that we're identifying the different sewer force mains for just general discussion and tracking.
Oh, we can change the names. We
Yeah.
can change the descriptions and include the names, a different name. That's an easy fix.
Yeah, I'm just
Yep.
looking at our list of things to do. Update description to indicate directly or by coding replacement at C Street. Is this the replacement of the C Street SFM?
Yeah, this would be the replacement of the 16 that failed on this last one.
So that's number 15 on our list. Not your list necessarily, David. Okay, so that actually was, there was questions about updating the description indicates, and the cost is, there was a question as to whether the design cost and the construction cost, where we were with that. I think there was an update you were waiting for, David. Did that maybe come in or not?
Well, town meeting kind of has put a little bit of a slowdown on that special town meeting because we didn't get the approved funding for anything. So now we're trying to go to Plan B of what are our options, where are our options. One of the other things that are very fluid about this force main, which has recently come to light, I think even when Brian was gone, is the transportation is really pushing the roundabouts at Bartlett Road and Four Corners. And if they in fact go forward with those quicker than, or as quickly as they're trying, something may have to be done in these two areas to provide for, because the force main, this will be a potential route for that new force main, the whole Surfside Road. And if these roundabouts get pushed ahead or moved quickly, we may have to do something, even if it's short stretches of pipe in the construction zone so that it'll be done in the ground before any work
So you
happens.
don't have to dig up twice.
So we don't have to dig it up twice.
Yeah.
But Surfside Road is very fluid anyways with the sewers and everything, so this is kind of a really moving target right now on this force main, but it's really high priority on on my radar. at least to get into a design, but I am working with consultants and Brian, trying to figure out where we go next.
Okay. That's all.
It was initially put in as just a placeholder. I mean, everything says it needs to be done, but we just don't have the right numbers, the 100% numbers yet.
Richard?
20 million, I think, is way high on my guessing, but I'd rather tell you, shock you with 20 and come in at 8 or 9, so. But it's just to get it's on the radar. That was my goal.
Okay, there's a little discrepancy between this form and this form. It shows 20 million in fiscal year 22. This form shows 23, 425 in fiscal year 21.
Yeah.
So
What's
is
the
it,
contingency?
is it 20 million in 22
The contingency.
and nothing in 21?
Yeah, I think the
I wonder
contingency.
why those numbers aren't transferring over.
The contingency didn't get picked up. It looks like 500,000 didn't get picked up for the FY '20, and the contingency, literally the line item contingency didn't get picked up in the FY '22 number, which should be in FY '21. Right?
Yeah, that's what, if this is correct, yes.
Yeah, so I'm making
Yes,
sure I
yep.
understand. So this should be 2.5,
Some
and
numbers.
this should be 23,
455.
and it should be here. Okay, thank you. We're gonna do a scrub on the planet sheets and our outstanding matters list next week with Brian. Brian and I. Yeah.
Brian, just a question on the 2.5 on the design of a new replacement force main. Isn't there some semblance of a emergency parachute amendment or attachment that one can say it's all part of, the problem that arose in January?
No.
Nothing at all. Because nothing.
Well, in terms of
From a financial standpoint, on just doing it instead of going through and waiting. I know we did inspections of the line, but hey,
well, I mean, in order to they engineering is not required by statute to be bid out. So if I had $2.5 million right now, I could award it to. We could choose any one of the firms that we currently work with and say, give us a price to do the following scope. And if we like the price, we could award the contract. There's the emergency provisions that allowed us to expend without appropriation were pretty clear, in my opinion, that they were consistent with the immediate repair and the immediate assessment of the force main line, not allowing us to proceed further than that without having the appropriation available.
that's language written by the Commonwealth.
That was we requested the emergency appropriation to deal with those specific things, i.e. the emergency repair, and i.e. the bidding out of the force main assessment was what we were allowed to, as memory serves me, allowed to expend without appropriation, which then we got the appropriation at town meeting to do, and so we were allowed to expend funds without the appropriation. Outside of that area, I don't believe that authorization would allow us to do this. Okay.
It was geographically very strict too. So.
Okay. We've got it based on other numbers, and we know what needs to be done. Next, we have replace the sewer department vehicle 1-ton dump truck, and I think where we were with the vehicles, David. Again,
This is a truck that was originally purchased 2007, I think. This one's a 2010. This one has spent most of its entire life, especially winters, plowing Sconset and sanding Sconset.
and so I want to, because I don't want to have you waste your you've gone through this with us, and which we appreciate. I just wanna, what we were looking for was just like a tear sheet
Yeah.
with a quote.
That's what I keep looking at my email for. I'm
No,
waiting
no,
for it
it's
to come
okay, we don't
in.
need it this,
Yeah.
look, I understand, we don't need it this second, but we need it to finalize a recommendation, so. For this, and when I get to it, if they're out of sequence, the loader, the 1-ton truck, and the sewer rotting truck, the open items that we need to resolve through you, through finance, are, tear sheet descriptions for the packets, so we have complete information and quotes.
Yeah. This truck is one that's coming. Now, if you look in your packet, you should have the latest tear sheet for the John Deere equipment, for the loader replacement.
Yep,
And there's also a quote in there also from Kubota, which gives you somewhat of a tear sheet.
okay, so we have that.
We have that, and preference for us would be we've got a lot of John Deere attachments. It doesn't make sense to try to switch over to Kubota or Case or someone else when we can get another John Deere.
Correct.
The DPW also has a John Deere tractor that's just about the same size as the one that we're getting. Again, compatibility with fittings and attachments is what I'm looking at. So you'll see the brand new quote in there from Padula Brothers for the loader. And again, anything that I try to purchase, I talked to Eric at DPW, and before that it was Germano, and so any of the attachments that I'm looking at will not only fit our equipment, it'll go right to, they can use our equipment or we can use their equipment.
That makes perfect sense. So we're, on our planet sheets, I don't know, Brian, if you can, we're looking, this is at the lower, page 1. This is, excavation equipment, is that,
No, this is the separate, the excavation equipment's different.
okay, because the dollar numbers, I'm trying to line up here. Because we don't, this is a request for one.
Replace loaders, a request for 150.
Okay, so I think that what happened here is,
Again, that
The
number
other
didn't-
explaining cost is not included, which is the 6,000, is not in the planet.
I think that the loader equipment, which is directly behind, is that,
Well, there's a,
Skid
on the
steer.
SIP request form, there's a $6,000 line item for, attachments. Oh, freight,
Freight.
so that bumps it to 156 versus the 150 in planet.
oh, okay, I'd have to, I'll match
Okay,
that up.
that explains it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, David, that's helpful information. If you go with the Deere versus the Kubota, you're reasonably confident that those costs, I mean, it's similar equipment, but you're reasonably confident in the costs.
Yeah, this just came in, what's the date on this? I don't think this is 2 or 3 weeks old.
Okay, good.
The only thing that may change a little bit as far as cost will be the way the mass combines and the state bids work is they go into a new, and it's usually a 2 or 3% increase. So it's nothing huge, but this just came out hot off the press, so.
Are there questions on the actual?
Does the, is the existing equipment, John Deere equipment, is that all done through Padula Brothers?
That was bought so many years ago, and it didn't used to be called Padula Brothers. There was another name that, Morgan, it was either Morgan Tractor or Norfolk Power.
Yeah, I'm just curious if we have a relationship
Yeah.
with the,
We do have a relationship as far as smaller equipment, and DPW bought their new beach tractor last year or the year before, and it came from Padula Brothers.
service?
So we have a very good service, is great with them.
Yeah.
They're similar to Caterpillar, and they come to the island
Yeah, great.
and service the equipment,
Yeah.
which is huge.
All right.
That's why I did look at the Kubota, and I went out and actually sat with John Bartlett because they run a lot of Kubota equipment out there. But the hookups were different, everything was different than what we already had.
Right, it makes some of your equipment obsolete, or at least it's not interchangeable.
It didn't make sense
Yeah.
to look at the differences, so, but, no, Padula Brothers has been great with us as far as that goes.
Okay, what about the sewer rotting truck? Actually, I'm sorry, new excavation equipment, go in sequence from our packet.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of stuff in the packet, and I've had discussions with Steve and differently about different types of equipment, and the reason I was looking at some of these types of equipment, And again, I'm trying to align anything that we look to get to align with what DPW has. Again, for the ability to share attachments, from brush cutting to snow blowers to rakes and everything like that. So that's why I've been looking at a lot of CAT. There is also a quote in there for a Mechalek piece of equipment, which is fairly new to the market. It's a combination skid steer excavator, but I couldn't get them to guarantee me any service. Where I can get service with CAT fairly easy. And I am looking back and forth at options. Do we just get a full-size backhoe loader? That way you don't have to worry about any trailers. It has better capacity to lift stuff.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just throwing out there, just along those lines, I'm not suggesting a particular manufacturer, but the JCB, which is the 3CX Compact, which is, I think it's 8 feet wide, it's shorter, it goes into a regular size 8-foot garage door. It still has a 13-foot dig depth, full capacity bucket, full capacity breakout, is 92,000. Not bare bones. And JCB comes out here regularly to service equipment. So I'm just suggesting that you think about, if you're thinking about a backhoe loader, it also travels 25 miles an hour down the road, and it becomes road legal. So those types of equipments, I think, having looked at them recently, are you might get more utility out of it than just the loader, but if the loader has to be used for specific purposes and you need those features that the loader offers, then obviously that's your call, and I'm just throwing it out there.
And I did, and JCB, Case, and John Deere are all on state bid. I did not pursue the other vendors. That's something I can do fairly easy. Airport has, they have a John Deere, I believe. The town used to have a JCB, I don't know whatever happened to that one, was an older machine. But I can get other quotes, but at least I had the actual numbers on certain pieces of equipment, so. Mini excavator seems to be what everyone uses these days, but then you have to have a mini excavator and you have to have a skid steer to backtrack fill or whatever like that, or to pick up the manhole. I do like the idea of a backhoe loader for versatility, as far as not having to have a trailer, being able to get it down the road, etc. It does limit you on some attachments that you may need or may want, but
I guess the only thing I wanted to comment on, I'm sorry to interrupt, but so that JCB is actually equipped, it's been in service in Europe, the Compact, and it's equipped with front-end hydraulics base for use as, they actually have.
As a backhoe.
It's actually set up for, there's a road work detail package. And it's set up so that you could be using hydraulic equipment off the front end where the backhoe is, and anything hydraulics, jackhammer, cutters, and then they do provide a connection for, it's not a carbide bit, it's a flail, and I think it's actually the flail version is a little bit less expensive.
flail mowers.
Well, it's a cutter, but they use flails on the as opposed to bits. So I just mentioned it because I ran across the road package, and they've got some videos on YouTube, and I know JCB's out there quite a bit. I have no affiliation with JCB, but it's like a neat little package that might answer solve some problems for you in terms of like trailering. And the other thing is the backhoe section is an offsetable, so you can, if you get in a tight space, it's not a center digger. It can be left, right, or center, or anywhere in between.
I am hiring. Do you need a job?
No.
What, for sales? For sales?
So the idea was just, trying to help you solve problems. We're, a team here, and that's why I'm mentioning it.
Yeah. One advantage if we don't need a trailer for any of the other equipment because we have roll-off container units, so we're lucky there. But I am looking at the different options for sure. But at least we have hard numbers. I went out and got hard numbers off the state bid list.
Right, and then Brian, just to make sure, just to bring this in, home for the next item, there's nothing in the appropriation that's going to indicate a particular type of equipment or things along those lines. It's the the authorization, excuse me, not appropriation, the authorization and then any appropriation is for a category specific, or is this gonna even be a broader thing that's gonna talk about equipment, and there'll be a line item for, presuming these are recommended and approved through the process with FinCom and the select board, for the 3 pieces of equipment as one line item?
The way the article would be written, more than likely, if this was approved and recommended and sent to town meeting, probably would say strictly purchase of new excavation equipment and accessories.
Okay.
So that it would give, in this instance, David, the sewer director, the leeway to investigate what the best package is for excavation equipment and accessories, whether it's, CAT, whether it's John Deere, whether it's JCB. What David would have is a finite dollar amount of X to go out and get to complete the excavation program equipment within that appropriation. I want to get away from, as an example, saying to purchase a Ford F-350 when a Chevy may be a better suitable for and not exactly the same description, but then when you write an article like that, then all that you can do is buy a Ford F-350, and you can't, you are limited to that. And we have run into that situation with previously where articles were written that stringent and that close that you were limited to what you could do. Something like this, I would not want to limit the sewer director to to John Deere. Okay, it would be, like I said, we would limit it, we would construct the article to say purchase of new excavation equipment and accessories to allow the sewer department to determine what their needs were within that, what they could get within that dollar value, and so that they have the equipment to maintain their operations.
Okay, so we capture nature and intent, and then we can retain flexibility.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
And luckily with the state bids, I mean, all these vendors are willing to work, which has been really good. I mean, I've even had them they're offering to send out a unit for demo.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're not there yet, but they're all ready to put a piece of equipment on the boat and send it over.
I think Neil Patterson uses JCP just to put the last thing there. If you get a
And
chance to
this
look.
one backhoe that I looked at exactly had that offset backhoe on the back to it.
Yeah,
slide back.
the 444 F2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice piece of equipment too. It's just big,
It is.
and
It is
you've
big.
got a lot of stuff in
We
these.
got a lot of little streets.
Yeah,
Exactly.
fire cisterns.
But
When you do identify an apparatus or something, you do have a hard number that you can sort of rely on, as opposed to having a little bit of variance on difference of products.
and luckily the state.
But I mean,
yeah.
I think it totally makes
The
sense.
numbers are all they've all been bid, so they're fairly equal
Yeah.
on their equipment.
No, it's just helpful, we've got something in front of us, we know you're doing your due diligence to begin with, but it helps us to process. Okay, so, we've hit the loader, the 1-ton truck, heavy equipment, what's next in our packet? Is it the rotting? Is it CMOM or?
CMOM.
The CMOM. All right, we'll jump over that.
And there's a whole bunch of paperwork in your
Yep.
folder for that.
So, okay, CMOM, without getting into detail if possible, because it's not maybe necessary, we were looking for some type, I don't think it certainly doesn't affect a recommendation, I just want to be clear, but we're looking for a summary report to include your prior year inventory of repairs and equipment by category.
Yeah, it's in that next presentation. There's two different. There's
Yeah,
a PowerPoint that's in there.
Summary of scope of
Yeah,
work.
to
for
tell you what
engineering
we've done,
services.
what we've done, what some of the recommendations are. The reason that myself and my lead operator in collections went to Quincy on Monday was that the CMOM program is pointing out some very specific repair and corrective action in some certain parts of the lines, which Nantucket has never experienced as far as cured and placed liners, which it creates the option of not having your construction project become a paving project, because if we do full excavation repair it becomes, not only it just excavates, it becomes a paving project. And usually paving can end up being as much as the whole total project or thereabouts. So we actually went up and witnessed right in the dead center of Quincy, them lining a 15-inch clay line, which they had to actually bypass this whole neighborhood. It was actually really neat to see how they did it. We got to see them prep the liner, install the liner, and then it went into the curing process. And while they were curing the liner, we went and saw the manhole rehabilitation crew, where the guys were actually rehabbing every single manhole in the city. And we saw the grout injection crew, which they're treating the laterals. They're not replacing or lining any laterals up in Quincy. But that's something we're gonna have to look at here, because some of our laterals are our biggest issues. But to see this thing from start, we got there at 10 o'clock in the morning, we left about 6 that night, and no excavation at all. All they did was block the road off for a day, went in with this saw on a tractor, cut out all the laterals, and then turned the line back on by 7 o'clock at night.
Is that employees or subcontractors?
It was a company called Rapid Flow,
Okay.
and the reason we went there, it was based on the firm, Weston and Sampson was the overall overseeing engineer on the project and the design engineer.
Yeah.
We were originally scheduled to go to Haverhill to see another project, but their project got delayed by 2 days. So we didn't go up and see that one. The technology blew us away. I mean, it was just amazing to see how to replace 350 feet of a line without having to put a shovel in the ground.
Yeah.
It was really, I had never witnessed it before, so. And a lot of the areas called out in the CMOM program, as you'll see, recommend cured in place liner or patch repairs. Normal excavation is all we've ever done. We just dig up the road and fix it or replace it.
Mm-hmm.
This gives us an option that could be very financially beneficial to the town, so.
Okay, that's awesome that you've identified it and you're looking at it. You don't wanna, you know,
And when it was first
Diminish
got
it.
presented to me, it's like, I've never seen it, and they're like, well, we have a project here, here, and here, where do you wanna go? So we took the day and went, and it was really neat to see, so.
So I think, and then along, just to follow up on that, David, the timing being a concern, just for future reference, the Hazen report entitled CMOM Annual Report, is that what you refer to it internally, or is this something that was produced generally for us, or?
This was produced for the program itself. This is one of the reportables and deliverables that we have to have.
Okay,
So,
and
but
the
this
reason-
was a little bit shortened version for you
No,
guys.
that's okay. So the reason I ask is, if, what we would like to do is have this become an annual part of our process with you. It will probably be more along the lines of the capital project status report.
Perfect, yeah.
But if we refer to it as the CMOM annual report, it's gonna be what you normally refer to it as.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
wanted to make sure.
No, that's perfect. That's something that, it's a requirement in our contract anyways. They have to give us these deliverables. So.
Yeah, it's a huge, it's great information for us to be able to be informed and just generally making decisions. You know.
We've been lucky with the teams that we have in place right now that the reports, you call them up, answer a question, they're on the phone, and it's been refreshing lately.
That's great. It's good you're having a good experience with it. There's got enough else going on. We're gonna jump over down or across to perimeter fencing.
Okay, yes. Perimeter fencing, I still do not have a hard number because it's been tough to get a vendor out. Currently, I have a vendor doing work at C Street and the other 2 pump stations that are currently being built, LMC, and they are gonna be coming out to the plant next Tuesday to survey the whole property, so they can see what's what, so.
So we'll have.
I should be able to have a hard number for you by the end of the month.
Okay, and then you're gonna break that into the 2 areas,
Well,
or what? That's
talking
the
with
one we
Brian and Brian was gonna talk to the insurance people. We don't know if insurance-wise, we cannot enclose the beds or not, but he was gonna come out. I don't know if he's been out.
Oh, I don't think he's actually going to make a trip out. But I believe in my preliminary discussions with him that, and this is our insurance consultant who helps us, guides us through all of our stuff. More than likely, I believe his recommendation is going to be that we fence the entire property that we currently have fenced in. There may be we don't want to create any,
Right.
um,
Nowhere need to be
the-
said.
yeah.
It's fine. So I think if that's okay with you guys, I think what I would just like to suggest is, we've been kicking this idea around now for a few years, I think, is let's get the number. I know you've been working on it. I know mobilizing a vendor to come out here and do it has been difficult just because the way the work load is for everybody in the world. We'll be looking at not two categories, $1 number, and then we'll be able to make our recommendation and go from there. Okay, so that will be very helpful.
Yeah, and like I said, Wayne's supposed to be seeing me on Tuesday, so I should be able to have an idea, and I'll make sure I have a number by the end of the month.
Okay.
And necessarily, do we have to do the whole thing in 1 year? Not necessarily. I mean, there's a whole section that's fallen down that we keep repairing, but we can get a price for the whole thing, so.
So what I think you make a recommendation to us, because that's what we want to rely on, is you're looking at the dollar numbers and you're looking at where your needs are and you're looking at what type of, what you can actually implement during the FY20, and if it makes sense for holding off, put it in it doesn't, not a lengthy thing, just like one sentence, this much money and this area. So that's helpful. Thank you, David. Any other comments, questions? Okay, so we're on to the rotting vehicle.
The rotting vehicle, again, that $200,000 number was based on when they originally purchased the vehicle. Again, as we continue to grow at the department, technologies and the training that we've had lately, a lot of communities have moved away from riding trucks and have gone to more of the specialized, like our Jetta truck that has specialized bits and tips that can actually cut roots with hydraulic, with water or chains, or we actually have one cutter it's a little hole saw that goes on the end of the jet, and it actually will drill through the roots as you go. One of the other big things that the industry is moving towards now is root treatment, chemically root treating lines. Our jet truck has a chemical system on it. It's EPA compliant and everything's approved in Massachusetts to use, that we used this season for the first time because the truck's brand new. And it eliminated call-outs to 4 different areas of the island that we usually have to go on a every few weeks basis because of roots.
How does that affect the stew out there at your mix rate?
It doesn't, because it's the chemicals that they use at EPA. They're actually beneficial to wastewater treatment because they help raise the alkalinity and the pH.
So you know what they are.
So what we're doing is we're trying to we want a higher alkalinity and a higher pH, and this does it with sodium hydroxide or whatever the different chemicals are. But
So
we may not even go to a new routed truck at some point in time, but the truck we have is starting to see its age.
So is your recommendation that we get a rotting truck? Is your recommendation that maybe we are going to change the technology?
I think Nantucket has used a rotting truck forever. Yeah. It's kind of hard to take and convince guys that we're going to get away from it. Heritage. The biggest advantage that a rod truck has over a jet truck is a rod truck will actually turn a corner,
jet, you're not going to get that.
Not go through the pipe.
Yeah.
With a clay pipe,
Right.
You have to be very careful with jetters and different tips. So we've had a lot of training on our jet trucks, so our guys know the proper way now how to use this equipment. But the rotting truck, at best, we may end up just taking the rotor off the chassis and get a new chassis, because the chassis is what's getting old and it's got a lot of miles on it. But if the body itself is good to use, we maybe just swap it out to a different chassis. But, we are looking at the technologies, and rotting is getting away from a lot of communities.
So just to kind of close that out for you, are we looking at this as you think this is an essential FY20, or is it beneficial to you that you do this FY21 and determine what you want?
Well,
I'm not certain I'm getting like a solid, we need a rotting truck.
Be convincing, Dave.
Yeah.
Well,
Or not.
like Steve Murphy said a little while ago, he has 3 trucks broken down right now.
Yeah.
This truck could break down tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I want to know.
I just, It's been a pretty reliable truck. It has had $10,000 to $15,000 worth of work on the rotting unit done in the last few years. It's maintained by a different crew now than before, but if it breaks tomorrow, I'm going to be strapped for being able to clear lines.
Right.
So
Which is an important service, essential service.
it's
Timing's not great, because
No.
if you say there's new technology and it
It's-
could take half a year to
Like I
kind
said,
of
we
figure
got a
that
brand
out.
new truck that we're using now, and it's working out very well. But there are times when we still have to bring the rod truck in.
Okay, so last question after Christie.
I was gonna ask, when is the replacement date for this truck?
Well,
Going out. I mean, what do you think is the replacement
It's
date?
already
for this
8
truck?
years old. This will be the 8th year, so it's coming up on 10 years of pretty hard service.
Yeah.
I don't know where the town's starting to go with their rotating the vehicles out. You know, that anything over 5, I think you're starting to push your luck on some equipment. We have 20-year, 30-year-old equipment as well, and now it's starting to cost a lot of money to fix. So I know the town's been trying to work on a rotational program, and we're kind of now moving into a 10-year rotational idea on some of our equipment, because a lot of stuff we have is ultra expensive equipment, specialized stuff. Luckily now we're able to move equipment around. We keep a lot of it inside, not all of it, but we keep a good portion of our expensive equipment inside. So that has helped maintain this truck. A lot of times this truck will end up going to the garage in Wisconsin and sitting out there for the winter, so we can bring our plows indoors when we're plowing. So
Okay, but so this is an essential piece of equipment that's showing a certain amount of wear that you feel is at the point that it needs to be replaced.
it's gonna start to cost us a lot of money. It really is.
Okay, I just for clarity in my
Maintenance.
processing and if anyone else was uncertain. Okay.
And I'm sure you guys have seen this truck driving around for years. Perry Butler used to drive this same
Yeah.
truck for years.
No, that's good. That's helpful information. Thank you. So now we're gonna, I don't wanna really dig into the LA. There's really been no movement on that, and it's not in your ballywhack that there's the movement. It's,
Actually, we just had a meeting
oh,
a week or so ago, and National Grid now is saying that they will not be going underground. They're going to be going above ground.
so polls.
So poles, which will affect us limitedly. We're not going to be nearly as badly affected as transportation or DPW, whatever like that. However, there are laterals and sidewalks, there's drains and sidewalks, there's issues, but National Grid is now saying that it's not feasible for them to go underground.
Yeah, they didn't want to be a partner is what it is.
They didn't want to work at all with anything. So that whole plan, we actually just had EPG. I think I sent you the report. They sent us we had EPG do a report of all the infrastructure in the ground currently in their planned route, and then at the 30th day on the end of the month, they take and say, oh well, we might not go underground now. We might go above ground. So we just got handed a report that tells us what was in the way underground, and now we just switch that consultant to say, well, now you have to look above ground and give us another report. So
And-
that's in the works.
And does that, David, that report of what's underground, it's not a report of the condition of what's underground, it's just a report of what's where?
Their scope was to give us an inventory and any negative impacts that this route would have had. So EPG should have, I haven't had a chance to go through the whole report yet, it
Sure.
just came in, so.
So, and the reason I asked is, I guess, the next step in this is, National Grid aside, is we've got a certain amount of money in a request for work in that project area for sewer replacement. And what I want to ascertain, and I don't think we're going to ascertain it in the next, 3 minutes here, is of that work, how much how much of that were we going to be doing because we were opening up and we're kind of co-locating?
Yeah.
And how much of it is work we need to be doing and needs to be as an FY20 request?
There
So
are,
that's-
we had some funding approved at last year's town meeting
Yeah,
that covered some of these included areas.
yeah.
Sparks Avenue, sections of, but with the CMOM report out now and the data coming in saying, well, you don't need to dig up this whole road, now you can line it.
Mm-hmm.
So this money could very well come in handy that's already for work in these project areas, but the way I have it listed, I don't have it listed specifically for sewer work.
So I guess, so the next question then is this, I presume that this,
Well, it's
for the purpose of FY '20, this needs to,
I think he does.
what's that?
No, I think he does. So to me, sewer replacement.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
some replacement there.
The wording's in there, it's not as clear, but,
I
and
guess
who
the
knows, they
question is
could
what's-
come tomorrow and say, well, yeah, we're gonna go underground. We don't know.
Right, but so the question for us, I think, at least in my mind, is what is that number if National Grid isn't involved? Are we still projecting there's a requirement to replace all of that? Or some of it was just, my understanding was some of that work was, it just made perfect sense to be doing while the road was open.
Yeah, it made it, well, a lot of it, with their services were gonna be on top of ours, and we never would have got to ours.
Right.
So we would have done it. We actually, L8 was a priority for camera work. That whole route has been cambered, and I'm now getting the reports on what needed to be done in those areas. And there wasn't a lot of full-length replacement, it was a lot of patchwork and lining.
So you guys will work
Maybe
out
David
whether
should
there's
go
going to
parallel
be,
sewer
whether this
lines.
request is going to change in terms of the dollar number. You know what I'm trying to get at here?
Well, I'm not,
That's
I mean,
hilarious.
I'm trying
Tell
to,
National Grid to get a
I'm
Coke
looking
in
at
this.
the,
6.5 for the L8. And
no,
then
that, see, that's,
There's nothing in here that says 6.5.
the L8 was approved last year, this project. There's nothing in fiscal '20 in
Yeah,
here.
we
There was
didn't-
1,045,000 approved last year. Okay,
Well, we've got the FY '20 on plan, it's a 6.5.
okay, well then that's not on the SIP request form though. That's what I'm trying to, I'm a little confused myself.
Yeah,
Totally.
so, and that's where the nature of my question was, how much of that, will we know how much of that we're actually gonna be requesting, because the very nature and essence of the project has changed.
That looks like a duplicate.
It's
From
a
above.
little, it's a little suspect.
Well, that's what I was trying to get to, but
Well, the one above is the Surfside wastewater.
Because that
right,
was
but
very-
that's also, but that's, ironically enough, that's 6.5 million in fiscal '20, so
Yeah.
I don't,
Okay, so we're gonna leave that as an open question, both with
Something
respect-
must not be
Okay.
going back and forth with this,
no, I can't even see
All
what
right,
I'm
so
looking
in
for
the
here.
interest of time, we're gonna move on, because we know that that's something we're not
but,
gonna resolve at the moment.
the only thing I can tell you now with National Grid is it's an extremely fluid. They came down with 14 people the last week when we had a meeting, lawyers, everybody else. And they're like, well, we're not gonna do this, we can't do this, it's too costly to do this.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
the
our
key
option.
word right there. Too
Right.
costly.
Because the amount of money that's gonna cost the ratepayers, they were looking at $15 million project to put stuff underground, if not more. So,
So the sewer force main, we don't, there's nothing, wait, Surfside wastewater
Water
treatment
treatment.
phase 2. David, before you launch into that, let me just quickly see where we are in our outstanding items lists.
there was a Baxter Road one that I think was kind of important, that I was able to provide you some more data with.
I don't remember
That was on my
phase
list.
2 open matter.
No, phase 2 we're pretty much closed on phase 2, I believe.
Okay, so this is just this is just in here.
Yeah,
Oh, I understand, but that was the one where we talked about the hypothetical of the connection and
Yes.
design standard versus giving them a performance standard versus a design specification that would create liability for the town. Okay, so let me just quickly ask that's the extent of the SIP request forms I have, but there are some things in here.
there was some documentation that wasn't in here from ever before that we just recently got, that's why.
Okay, and then
Baxter
so-
Road is key.
And then having spoken with town admin on that, basically, just to recap for you guys, we were looking for a SIP request form. For the moment, as a short-term placeholder, town admin is resolving through engineer and select board various matters and reviewing overall costs to retreat from the Baxter Road with respect to certain utilities and/or just general planning. I don't want to have anyone read anything into the word retreat. These are just my kind of quick notes. Anticipating a $100,000 ask for related study work in FY '20. So for the Baxter Road, we would, I'm gonna pen in 100. thousand based on those notes, and then I'll follow up separately with, finance. C Street pump station, nothing for you, David, we just need to change some labeling. The upgrade to wastewater lab, nothing there, it's moving to FY '21. The existing forest main assessment and inspection, we talked about perimeter fencing, collection sewer rehab.
Can we talk quickly about the membrane one?
Yeah, which one is it on the planet?
1801. It's like the fifth or
Yeah,
sixth one down.
gotcha.
That has been a placeholder for numerous years. I believe there's already money in there from 18 and 19, like
1.3
something like that. Suez was just on the island as early as a week and a half ago and handed me a brand new, hot off the press estimate as far as budgeting numbers. And I have not had a chance to change the number request. But what they came down and presented us is nothing like the numbers they were originally talking anyways between 4 and 8 million. We can replace the membranes and all the controls and everything for just about 2 million. It's actually under 2 million, which was a number that really stood out to me. It used to be called GE Xenon, so maybe the word Suez is coming as a real strange name, but GE Xenon used to be the mother company of this, but now Suez Water has purchased GE Xenon. So this bid came in to us, this quote came in to us from Suez Water with some very enlightening numbers and some new technology upgrades to the plant that would help for future capacity. So I need to modify that number for you, and I can do that before the end of the month for sure.
Okay, so that's the Surfside wastewater WWTP membrane upgrades,
Yeah.
and then,
That was 21, we were seeking another 4 million, but that was based on old information that I had.
so what you're saying is you're gonna be making a request to move that forward to FY '20, and you'll
And
update the dollar number?
The dollar amount won't be anywhere near that amount, I don't think, yeah, so.
No.
They actually came out to see us, which was very nice actually, it was refreshing to talk to them, so.
Okay, so an updated much less ask. Okay, so just so I can track this. Are there other ones that you have, David, that you wanted to make sure we hit? Because the other ones I have are basically outstanding matters that were addressed in meetings that I've had subsequent. And so unless there's something you have.
No, that hits my hot list that finance had asked me that you guys had questions on, so I think that
Okay.
hits my list.
Good.
Like I said, I will, I wrote notes down, I will get you some further numbers as requested. Some more information. I actually will contact a couple of the other vendors to try to get some other pricing on some equipment.
Take a look at that video on that compact. Awesome.
Should I email you an application?
I'm not looking for work, man. I want you to be as best equipped as possible.
Versatile.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's, I'm trying to get everything the same as everybody else, so I think
Yeah.
we're working in the right
No,
direction.
and I understand, CAT, if everyone's using CAT, there's utility in that too, so I'm not trying to steer you on that. Okay, great.
Any other special, anything else you need from me specifically, that you guys know of? Anybody?
No, I think you've got the short list of what's left,
Yeah.
and we really appreciate you pulling this together and coming in. We know there's a lot going on, so thank you.
Now I gotta go to a radio station and do a radio talk.
Oh, lovely.
Okay, guys, so just to wrap up, are there any discussion or comments with respect to the Rory forms that anyone wants to bring up at this point? We have the sewer to complete, obviously, and we're much better equipped to do that. And then if there's anything that you can't get to because we don't have information, I just suggest hold it, obviously. There's no committee reports. Committees are really kind of met, correct? Okay. Any comments on the good of the order? Directions we should be doing things different, or?
What are we discussing tomorrow?
That's actually, next meeting is Friday, November 9th. I do not know where we are with respect to getting in other open matters from departments. We've got DPW, airport was clerical things for our information and our records and for us to review and discuss. DPW has not a huge list, but it's not insubstantial, ranging from operations facilities, public transportation, solid waste. We did the finance, police, marine we have, and that's it. Do we have anyone for tomorrow, or we should?
Well,
we cancel?
DPW is still in the process of sending us stuff today, so I mean, I would be, we would be putting it together very late for you tonight and bringing it to you tomorrow morning to look at this point. I don't know that I would have time to put it together, quite frankly.
Okay, and then it's more likely than not that it's not fully complete.
He was working on it today and yesterday, so when I talked to him, so.
Okay, so can we put what I'd like to then do is we'll cancel our meeting for the 9th, so we're gonna need to send a notice update, please, if I may ask someone to do that. And then Thursday, November 15th, we'll need a hard stop on DPW for a complete package.
Oh, we'll send him an email and tell him we have to have it today or tomorrow so it can be ready to be sent to you to the committee for next week.
So then the date and time of our next meeting would be Thursday, November 15th, 10:30 a.m. at the Wanacamic Conference Room. And that would be to address DPW, outstanding matters, and any general outstanding matters, and then hopefully begin to review the Rorys. Because my concern is we've lost 3 weeks of scheduling for me to be putting together things I need to be doing in the background in order to deliver our report timely and still have, meet my life with a capital L commitments. So I'm getting a little worried about it. Yeah. Okay, so any other comments?
Actually, Christy and I were discussing if we went aerial sewer lines in conjunction with National Grid, we wouldn't have to buy excavators. Let them share that cost.
Oh boy. Creative thinking there.
Well, the electricity keeps it nice and warm, the sewer line.
And you could do it over flower pots. And stuff.
So
You
funny.
didn't have to worry about
Yeah.
fertilizing the gardens. All right, thank you. Motion adjourned?
So moved.
Excellent. Thank you all.
Imagine that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we'll put it, what's the,
White PVC running, or like,
you put it in the tube
To
like
each
the,
house.
like the ATMs, I mean, the bank teller.
That would be an ATC.
We wouldn't tell you guys.
It would be a
You just start driving around town.